As someone who committed serious crimes that caused a lot of harm for a lot of people, a lot of violation, a lot of hardship, I somehow knew that I needed to take full responsibility for what I did on many levels. There were practical reasons for this. There were legal reasons for this. When you go to court, one of the things the judge wants to know is if you have accepted responsibility for your actions and for your crime. And if you don't, that judge is very likely, if you get sentenced, that judge is very likely to give you a longer sentence because you have not owned up to what you did. So that's one reason. But for me, it was more personal and deeper than that. I knew that I had lost my way and I had become someone who agreed to deception and deceived other people in ways that hurt them. And that if I didn't take full responsibility for what I did, I was going to be continuing that deception. If I allowed myself the out of blaming someone else and saying, well, he told me to do this, so it wasn't really my fault, that squirreliness, the very squirreliness of what I did was going to, on some level, continue and be given a lifeline to remain in my life. And I didn't want to do that. So that to the best of my ability, I did take, and I have taken, and I continue to take full responsibility for what I did. And in so doing, one of the things that I learn and notice is that we have a staggering lack of responsibility and in our culture on every level. And I want to talk about that from top to bottom in this video here today. There will be 1,000 good examples that I will forget or miss or not even know about, but I'm going to do my best to go from top to bottom. And because responsibility can turn into an ugly word and be equated with blame and guilt and fault, I'm going to use the word accountability as an imperfect replacement. So let's start at the very top. We have wealthy people, phenomenally wealthy people in our country who have accumulated massive amounts of wealth through the labor and through the purchasing power and through the infrastructure built by all of us. And yet those wealthy people are simply not taking accountability for how other people have contributed and are contributing to their wealth. They are accumulating it. They are hoarding it. They are lording it over everyone. They are using this as ways to consolidate their wealth and their power and to harm other people. There are thousands of examples of this. Everybody can see it, and I'm not going to try to go into all of them here. But it's obvious. There is a lack of accountability for among the wealthiest among us. Accountability for their own actions, for their own greediness, for the power, for the ways that this harms average people in our lives. There is a phenomenal, staggering lack of accountability in our political system, just on every single level. There are the obvious examples, and every side or faction in the political argument wants to blame the other. Donald Trump doesn't take accountability. The Senate Majority Leader doesn't take accountability. You're not taking accountability. You're not doing this. Well, what about this and what about that? It is a staggering from the top down, from Donald Trump saying that January 6th perpetrators who crashed the Capitol and attacked police officers and attacked the capital of our country are not accountable for their actions. And he's not accountable for the fact that he incited that. He blames the people who shot at him, but he does not hold the people who he has incited accountable for their own violence. It's all over the place. The lack of truthfulness. truthfulness is a kind of accountability, and the staggering lack of truthfulness from MAGA and from politicians on every level is just that. It's staggering. It's mind-numbing to see how thorough it is. The finger pointing, always blaming someone else. Donald Trump always blames someone else. Never. It is a personal motto, a personal foundation of his whole being to never accept responsibility for what he has done wrong. But he is not the only one. Let's flip to the other side. On the other side, there's the Democrats, the left, the progressives, and there is a whole system, a whole belief system that has a lack of accountability built into it. People who have been oppressed are not accountable for their actions. People who are addicted are not responsible for their actions. People who commit crimes as a member of a minority community are not responsible for their actions because of the oppression. This is also a staggering lack of accountability, which corrupts our culture and creates an entire system where people know on some level that they can commit all kinds of misdeeds in the name of one victimization, one ism, whether it's racism or sexism or imperialism or whatever. There are countless ways that we can excuse our own lack of accountability and the lack of accountability for the people in our country who are suffering. So there can be a lack of accountability in our own lives, and there can be a lack of accountability in holding other people accountable for their actions. We call homeless people unhoused, as though the only thing, and this is a very complex issue, so forgive me, this is a short video. There's no way I can address each complexity of it. But the left insists that we call people unhoused, as though the people who do not have homes or stable places to live are only the victims of a malicious, corrupt system. And it is a malicious, corrupt system. But within the whole point of this is that even within a malicious, corrupt system, we all have our own accountability. People who, I have neighbors right now who work their asses off to afford a small apartment next to ours. There are probably 8 of them living in the apartment. They all seem to be working. They're all up late at night fixing up the apartment, which was not in good repair when they moved in. They are being accountable for their lives. They're working their asses off in a very difficult situation where it is too expensive for a couple or a family to live in a single dwelling. So they are being accountable. They are being responsible. They are working their asses off to make this work. God bless them. So meanwhile, our whole social service system is finding excuses for why people can't find housing for themselves, why they can't get off drugs. One of my favorite stories, the woman who cuts my hair was married to a guy who was an alcoholic and was abusive and terribly mistreating of their family. And she said he was an alcoholic and he always said, oh, I can't change because it's a disease and I can't stop it and there's nothing I can do about it. And then, you know what happened? Guess what? The doctors told him that his kidneys were and his liver were just about shot and he was going to die if he didn't stop drinking. Guess what? He stopped drinking. We use these well-intentioned things about addiction and about oppression to justify terrible behavior. We are not holding ourselves and we are not holding each other accountable. We are not holding our kids accountable. I heard a story from a school teacher the other day on YouTube talking about how he can't control his classroom because if he tries to hold his students accountable, students who are being rude, who are being insulting, who are being violent, who are disrespecting and bullying each other, he can't hold them accountable because their parents will sue him or sue the school, or the administration is afraid to hold students accountable. This lack of accountability is a rot in our culture. It is everywhere. And we are making excuses for ourselves. Donald Trump has an excuse for everything. He blames everyone else. He has supposedly the most powerful position in the world, and somehow he blames someone else as though he is victimized. That is not an anomaly. That is not rare. That is what, on some level, we are all doing. Oh, I can't quit drugs because it's a disease and I can't stop doing it. Is it hard? Yeah, damn right it's hard. I worked with addicts. It's a damn hard thing to do. Can people do it? Yes. Will they do it if they are being enabled and having their excuses made for them? No, they won't, for the most part. People change when one way or another, we are held accountable for our lives. The FBI, I was held accountable by a state regulatory agency. I was held accountable by the FBI, by the U.S. Attorney's Office. I was held accountable for what I did. And it changed my behavior. Sometimes terrible things need to happen for us to finally stop and admit that we are accountable for our own actions and our own lives. But we can do this. Accountability is something that we can take within ourselves. Holy crap. This is my life. Whatever has happened to me, whether I was influenced by a corrupt, devious spiritual teacher, I made the choices to do what I did. I am accountable for that. If I experienced institutionalized and personal racism in my life, that is a terribly difficult thing. And I talk about the importance of compassion in a marriage with accountability. But no matter what has happened to me, whether it's racism, sexism, any ism that you want to name, each of us is responsible and free to walk the walk of our own lives. And if we continue to internally make our own excuses, I can't do that because of this, or I can't do that because the world isn't fair and life isn't fair and nobody, and my father and my mother and this and that. All these things need to be heard, but they need to be married with accountability. And the greatest lie that we tell ourselves is that avoiding accountability somehow keeps us out of trouble. It means we don't have to carry the weight of all the shit we have done in our lives. It doesn't work that way. Accountability is freedom, or accountability is the beginning of freedom. When I said, oh my God, I cannot believe the mistakes that I made. Personally, me, Mac Parker, I am staggered by the foolishness of what I did. And it looks a whole lot like I'm going to have to take the rest of my life to pay for this, to take account for this. But the second that I knew that I had to take that accountability, there was a freedom even in the midst of having to carry the burden of what I knew I was going to have to carry. I have seen this time and again with clients I have worked with in human services, with family members, when we take accountability for our lives, for our actions, we are on the path to freedom. When we do not take accountability, we are stuck in an endless cycle of victimization, blaming others, feeling sorry for ourselves, feeling depressed, feeling embittered, feeling disempowered, you name it. When we finally begin to say, this is my life. Whatever has happened to me, whatever my father and mother were to me, whatever has happened to me, yes, I will have compassion for myself. Yes, I will be grateful for the compassion that others may offer me. But I will recognize always and forever that this is my life. Only I can walk the walk of my own life. That is the beginning of freedom. I encourage each and every one of us to look within, because that's where it has to start. How am I not taking responsibility for my life, for my situation? How am I enabling others to not take responsibility for their lives and their situation? Do you think homeless people are going to be happy endlessly in an endless cycle of shuffling from this shelter to that shelter? Can we actually help people get to a place where they can walk the walk of their own lives in such a way that they maybe can have their own safe, habitable place to live? Do we think that we are going to make life okay for addicts who are taking chemically produced drugs that do nothing but destroy people's bodies and kill them? Do we think we are going to make their lives better by giving them free needles and giving them places to shoot up with these drugs that are only designed to destroy them? Or can we actually help them say, you know what, this is going to kill you? And